Hello and welcome everyone to this session on unifying a diverse workforce. It's really about how we use internet technology to create a connected culture. I'm Kaz, I'm from Unity. We are an employee experience platform or internet software as a service kind of reimagined for the new world of work. And I'm joined by Marc from Holland and Barrett.
Hi everyone, so I'm the internal communications and employee brand lead at Holland and Barrett.
So we'll be seeing loads of great examples, and Marc will be speaking quite in detail about how Holland and Barrett are using technology to create connected culture. So, just to give a bit of context around this and kind of why we wanted to talk about this, well, the first reason is that if you look at the latest data from Gartner, who've been measuring employee engagement for the last 13 years, it shows that we've had the first ever sustained drop in employee engagement, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, because if you ask companies, they tell you that we're focusing on employee experience more than ever, but the data doesn't reflect that, so something is out of whack. The second reason is that those of you that follow the trends can't hide from the buzzwords like the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, there's bare minimum Mondays now, so all these things are coming along, but that isn't changing. So what we're seeing is that there is high turnover, and that to me says we need to be prioritising our retention strategies as much as we should be prioritising our recruitment strategies, if not more. So how can we unlock that retention strategy piece? And that's exactly why we wanted to bring Holland and Barrett on, because I thought they'd be the perfect customer to really talk about retention. Because if you look at retail as an industry, high turnover rates, it's also not a particular surprise because frontline workers essentially tell us that they have a worse employee experience than they had pre-pandemic. So it's going backwards. So that to me says if you can master retention and as a consequence engagement in the retail industry, working with a company like Holland and Barrett and the staff, then you can master it anywhere. So no matter what industry you're in, there are really good digital tactics employed here which really create a good culture, connect people. You can see why Holland and Barrett is such a great company to work for. Just to kind of help you understand why some of this is, why I think it's really important to think about frontline workers as well when it comes to this, is because if you ask the C-suite say that they know it's important to enable a frontline workforce, but at the same time they admit they do not prioritise frontline technology, they prioritise desk-based workers. And so to kind of hold the light up to you, it essentially says that we need to look at the ways in which we connect those frontline workers and enable them to do better. So, in terms of the role of the digital workplace and why we want to talk about this, what's really important to me is the workplace. And sometimes we forget that actually, yes, it's digital, but how do we create some of those more traditional workplace areas that make going to work and staying there a good thing? So thinking about things like creating a good culture, enabling people to be social with each other. These are the things that we like going to the workplace for, and that's why office workers tend to stay more. Also collaboration aspect. Of course, there's a knowledge and an enablement part to it as well. These are the 4 areas that I kind of want you to think about how they apply. And Marc will be showing us and talking to us about how they have improved those aspects and engaged their workforce. So I'll hand over to Marc to say more.
Thank you very much. I can't stand behind that. I feel like it's some kind of presidential lecture. I'm definitely not that person. So as I mentioned at the beginning, my name's Marc Whittingham and I work for Holland and Barrett. And we've been on a journey over the last 2 years to look at how do we really drive collaboration in our workforce. So what I'm going to talk to you about in the next 10 minutes is really how we use technology to do that. But before I start, there's some quite important things I need to cover. First of all, I've had 2 things go wrong today, so I'm hoping the third doesn't go wrong in this presentation. I've spilled my coffee over my top, I ate too much lunch, so buttons flew off my jeans, so yes, fasten your seatbelts, this could go very well or very wrong, depending if that third thing happens in the next 20 minutes. So, just a quick introduction to Holland and Barrett. Has anyone heard of the company Holland and Barrett? Raise your hand if you've heard of them. our marketing team are doing their job. So a company that's been around 152 years, to be very precise. We have got colleagues, around 8,000 colleagues, and we're based mainly across Europe. We class ourselves as Europe's biggest health and wellness company. And what we found around 2 years ago is that we had to look at our culture, because what we'd done is we'd acquired loads of different companies and we'd formed together to almost create 3 separate companies from that. So we had all of our retail stores, so over 1,000 of them across Europe. We had our distribution centres, and then we had our traditional kind of office-based teams. And what we found is, actually, we would treat them all as 3 different businesses. Colleagues have 3 totally different experiences depending on where they sat within the business. And also as well, what we found with that is career progression wasn't happening, collaboration across the teams wasn't happening, because someone would identify, oh, I work in one of our retail stores, so I'm separate to everyone else. I work in distribution, so I'm separate, and so on. And what we also found as well, I'll talk quite a lot in this presentation around hard to reach colleagues. So for us, typically, I think a lot of people, when they're looking at that, will think of your retail worker, so someone who's in store serving customers the majority of their role. What we found during the pandemic is, actually, some of our office-based workers had become hard to reach as well, because we'd all moved from sitting in 1 or 2 or 3 offices, and we'd moved to actually, the majority of us are sitting at home, and yes, I've got a computer in front of me that I'm using all the time, but it was getting harder and harder to reach them with the information that we wanted to. So as I go through the presentation today, I'll talk about all 3 of those workforces and what we've done to really unite them. So covered there kind of at a glance who Holland and Barrett are, challenges that we've had, and as I said, the biggest challenge we had that we were trying to solve using a collaboration platform was, how do we bring our teams together? How do we start conversations as one business versus 3 separate businesses? So if I go to the next slide, so just started touching on this in the last slide, but why change? So actually, Holland and Barrett is profitable, so is there any problem in actually leaving the businesses as 3 separate businesses? We have 3 separate intranets, so each one of those businesses has their own intranet and their own team that looked after that. And the reason why we wanted to look at changing and wanted to look at our culture overall, with technology being an aspect of that, is actually our colleague experience was pretty crap. As I said, collaboration wasn't really happening, and people moving across the business wasn't really happening in the best way, and benefits weren't aligned across those businesses. So what we wanted to do as a business at Holland and Barrett is look at how can we really make this that we are becoming a wellness employer, and regardless of where you work in the business, you're part of this wellness business that we're building. So that was the main thing that we wanted to look at, is how can we create this one environment where everyone feels they're part of one team. The other thing was, I've mentioned there, and some of you may be shocked, some of you may already find this, we have 3 intranets. We had a SharePoint site, we had an old operational tool, and we had another custom-made tool. So 3 teams were posting our content onto 3 intranets, and people across the business couldn't see what other parts of the business were applying with. So it was one of those things that I joined 2 years ago. I can't just one of those moments. I thought it was a little bit bonkers. We're paying for all this maintenance, and we're paying for all these people to upload this content, but it's not delivering us collaboration, and actually just feels really inefficient. So I'm going to share with you briefly now. So this is what we had. This is one of the intranets that we had previously. So this is what our retail colleagues would have seen previously. Looks great. Platform, probably about 10 years old, but it offers a pretty good experience to our retail colleagues. But when we really dug into it, because this has a real high usage rate, so a lot of our colleagues were using this, they're actually using it because they needed to go on there to find their operational tasks in store. So people weren't going on there to collaborate and communicate, they were going on there because it told them today is Monday and they need to take these out of date vitamin D tablets off the shop floor and take them into the back room to go back to our distribution centre. So the whole purpose around what we were trying to deliver there was actually, this is more of an operational tool than it was a collaboration platform. And I use the term collaboration platform just as I'm going through this. That for me is it's an intranet, it's a digital workplace. The collaboration platform is that just from a language point of view. So this is, as I said, what the retail team used. Our distribution team used the SharePoint site, and then we'd had another site made for more of our office-based colleagues. But what we found across all 3 of those sites is people weren't really using this because they wanted to kind of find out what was happening. They were using it because operationally I had to go on and do something. So what we did 2 years ago, and this was really the start of our journey, is we did a whole load of work around our culture, the things you typically expect. We looked at our values, we looked at our employer value proposition, and we started a whole host of different work around that. The most important thing to me, because I led that work stream, is actually we needed to look at what is the collaboration platform that brings everyone together. So this is where we started our journey, not only with Unily, but we looked at other providers as well, to look at how can we have one system, one platform that brings everyone together. And this is, if I go to the next slide, this is where we are now in that journey. So what we've done is, over the last 2 years, we have moved people from 3 separate intranets. And believe me, some people were very attached to those old retail sites. Some people loved it because they'd used it for 5 years and they knew where every button was. So it's been a phased process and we've taken it slowly. But we've evolved to one site, so we call it the Buzz at Holland and Barrett. And we got that name from a colleague competition. And what we do with that one site is we have 3 different, I'm going to call it a landing page, 3 different home pages. So it's all using the same technology, the same site, but the experience that I get if I work in retail and that home page is slightly different to the experience that I would get in distribution or being an office-based colleague. Because when we started this journey 2 years ago, the first thing we did is we went out to our colleagues and said, why would you want to use a collaboration platform? What would it mean to you? What do you want to get out of it? And our whole mindset around this whole project was, this can't be something that our managing director or one of our directors is saying, yeah, go and do that and put my picture on front of it, won't that be great? This has to be about what the colleague wants and how we use technology to enable that. So the first thing we did is we went out and we said, what would you like to use this kind of platform for? We got some of the real basic ones, all what you'd expect, you know, I want to find out what's happening across the business, I want to find out how I'm getting my pay rise, I want to be able to attend events. But we also got some really great ideas. So one being around, I'd like kind of an eBay style site on there. So actually I can sell something from like a personal item that I want to sell and I can offer that out to other Holland and Barrett colleagues. Or I've got a holiday home, I'd really love for someone to be able to know about that and they can kind of bid on if they want to go and spend a weekend there. So we looked at all different ways around how can we really make this so it feels like the colleagues have created this and the colleagues that have owned this, the people that are going to use it. So what you'll see on there is some of your kind of more corporate stuff around kind of the latest news and things like that. But on our different menus, it's all about colleagues doing things which they find really useful. And so that was one part around actually kind of what different functionality can we put on there. The other thing that we've really looked at as well is what we know is we have a very different demographic of workforce across our different parts of the business. So I'm going to be very stereotypical here. I don't know why I'm stood here to represent retail, but I'm going to move to this side of the stage. So in our retail workforce, we have an age demographic where it's predominantly 40 plus. And the feedback of what retail colleagues are telling us is, that sounds a bit scary, I know what I'm using now, I know how that works. So what we did there is we took the typical approach around, we got champions and they helped us design it, develop it. What we also did as well is we tried some new things. So actually, we looked at how could we put different incentives up there. So, for example, in our retail stores, if they sell a certain quota of vitamins, then they can get an incentive back from that and they get some cash back from those sales. So all of that information around that individual and how much they've earned incentives that month are on the Unily platform. So what we try to do there, and also things like that payslip, is make it so this is a one-stop shop. What they're using this site for is not only to see their payslip, to see their incentives, but also if they want to book some holidays, they go through this platform to do everything. And as I said, the rollout, we did some things which were very typical, so as in we had champions, as you'd expect, but we also as well took it really slowly. So we have 13 different regions in Holland and Barrett, sales regions, and we did one region first of all, got loads of feedback, totally changed our approach to the homepage and things like that, and then we moved to another region and then continued that cycle. So it took us a while to roll out. This wasn't about speed, this was about how do we get this right for our colleagues. And just some insights, so what we've seen so far is we are now at, I think it's about a 78% usage of the intranet. And as I said, we've taken all the retail tasks out of it, so they're no longer going to the intranet to find out what they need to do that day. They're going to the intranet because they're finding it really useful. I'm going to prefix that 78% with, we've not fully rolled it out to everyone yet, we're still doing different countries at the moment, so it's still a work in progress. The other thing as well that we've done is we've said that homepage, all the content on here is never finished. So this is never a finished article where, yep, we've delivered the intranet, tick, let's move on to the next thing. We're constantly asking for feedback around how can we do this differently, how can we change what we're doing here, and we're constantly adding new things. So we added to Unily ideation around pronouns. It'd be great if, like on LinkedIn, you could have your pronouns on there, and we've delivered that and rolled that out. So we're doing small things throughout the implementation. So I've just covered already there some things around kind of how do we do it, and as I said, the biggest thing for us is how can we do small iterations of changes throughout the rollout to really make sure that we're not overloading people on day one, but it's continuously adding new features and listening to colleagues' feedback to make sure it's something they want. What I'd also say as well around how we did it is, you'll all be aware of your businesses, the intranet is not the only way that you communicate. You might have town halls, you may have several different activities that you do. So what we do is we class our collaboration platform, the Buzz, that's at the heart of everything. So anything we do, for example, if it's a town hall that's recorded, you access that recording afterwards on the Buzz. If we've got a Q&A session happening, you would ask those questions in advance on the Buzz. So what we decided early days is, this can't be, just another thing that we're throwing out there. It can't be, when I first joined, we had Yammer, we had probably about 7 different sites that people could use. So we've switched off all of that technology and we've said, this is the heart of everything we're doing. This is how we're going to make sure that colleagues are connecting with this, because we're not trying to give them 12 different platforms, 7 different platforms. It all feeds through from the Buzz experience. As I already said, what we've also done with that is we obviously already had a HR system and a payroll system. So that through single sign-on, you click on one button on the Buzz and it takes you to that HR system. So everything should just be seamless where you go to one place and it links you out to other sites if you need to see the payslip or whatever. I think the other thing that I would say as well is that we've used data throughout this implementation and colleagues' feedback. So data telling us, from the old platforms, how many people have used them, how many people have used the kind of non-optional things on there, what's been really useful. And then throughout the rollout, we've been constantly asking for colleague feedback and getting data. So on any pages of our Buzz intranet, you can click on there and give feedback at any point if you want to, and then we review that on a weekly basis. So a lot of patience went into rolling this out. We also had to manage kind of upwards because we had a finance team and directors who wanted to roll this out tomorrow. They wanted one platform yesterday, and we had to say, no, this is going to take, probably took us about a year and 6 months to get this right. But what we're now seeing is those results are really coming in. We're seeing the usage of the platform really go rocket above what we expected it to deliver. So the final thing that I'm just going to cover then is just around technology and why we use technology at the heart of this. So as I mentioned at the start, we have 3 different segments of our workforce, and we know probably our office-based workers are more used to using technology. So as I said, we took a totally different rollout approach for our retail and our distribution colleagues, but also we make sure that this is kind of wrapped in its one system, it's delivering everything there. So overall, what we've seen is, since we launched, we've had about 1 million views on our home pages, which we're targeting about 800k at this point, so we're slightly ahead of that. I'm just near my mid-year review, that's why I know all these targets off the top of my head. But what we've also found as well is by making the platform what our colleagues want and not just solely what we want as a business, we've seen those numbers be a lot higher than we were expecting. So that thing I mentioned earlier around the kind of eBay platform, if there's anything from eBay, we're not trademarking that, we are not calling it on the platform. But by having those features on there, people are kind of intrigued to go on there, and so they're clicking on there, and while they're on the site, they're seeing that, oh, Joe Blogs just joined from Kellogg's, and I'm clicking on that news page. So everything that we can do to get colleagues onto that site means then they're finding new content that they want to interact with. And what we've also seen as well is the social features on there work perfectly. So we have several colleague networks around colleague health and wellness, LGBTQ+, and what we're finding is when colleagues go on there and they see this content, they're really interacting with it, and we're seeing some great conversations start. And that's not through using Yammer and several other sites, that's all on one platform, so then it's easy for people to be able to go to the platform and interact with what they want to do. So that's the Holland Barrett journey. It's still, as I said, work in progress. So I don't think we'll ever get to the place where we're done and dusted with this and we're kind of ready to continue. We'll continue changing the platform, continually using new content. And something we're just about to launch, which we're quite excited about, is we saw that we had a real gap from people on the shop floor not really knowing any of our leadership team. So an idea that we've had is we're going to do 90 seconds with video. So hosted on the platform, but we have 90 seconds with each of our senior leadership team, and they answer colleagues' questions in those 90 seconds. Really interesting ones around what's your favourite animal to what's a tricky business decision. And then the conversation continues after we've released that, because then people are commenting underneath those videos to then say, oh, I didn't know that about you, and oh, I didn't know you liked hockey, I play hockey too, we should start a team. So it's all about there, how do we encourage people to come on the platform and then continue the conversation. So that's it from me there. I'm going to hand back over to Kat, so I think has got a few questions.
Yes.
No, I backed away from it then, sorry.
I added some extra notes there whilst you were talking as well. So I've got a few questions I'm going to ask Marc, but also I think we might have time to kind of get to the floor to one or two questions as well. So if you've got something you want to ask Marc, then feel free to think about it, and we'll have time at the end. So the first one I wanted to touch on is you mentioned that you have quite a multi-generational workforce. That's actually challenged a lot of workplaces coming into. We've got the big number of generations in the workplace at the same time. What are some of the ways you kind of deal with that divide in terms of expectations of what you provide?
Yes, I already touched on it, but one thing that I didn't mention, since this is a perfect opportunity to go back to it, is we also have a colleague representative forum, employee forum, you call many different things in many different companies. And what we make sure on that forum is that we have a real representative view of our workforce. So they're a group that we always go back to at every point to say, does this make sense? Should we be doing it differently? And with that, you get a real view from the whole workforce around, no, you can't just do that one option. You've got to think about how you can do a video, but also do some face-to-face training on that rollout, for example. So definitely using that representative forum that's probably there in a lot of workplaces to be able to give you that feedback. And sometimes you don't want that feedback because you've just worked on it for 3 weeks and you're like, no, I've got to change it all. But it's so useful that then when it lands with thousands of colleagues that it actually is there.
Also, you mentioned you kind of like you've got the tables and things you upload them so you can access them on demand. Do you find like the different generations are consuming different types of content? Do you have things in different formats?
Yeah, so I would probably say that's less of a generational thing and more of a time thing, if I'm honest with you. So what we would typically see now as an example around the videos that we upload, if we upload a 90-second almost teaser trailer of what the town hall is covering, so we typically get our CEO who hosts it to actually do that, today we're going to cover X, Y, Z, very this morning-esque. And we tend to find that more people watch it because it's kind of dragging them in with that 90 seconds versus on sitting and watching 30 minutes of content. So slightly generational there, but I would say it's more around what am I going to get out of this is what people are probably thinking about there. And if I've seen that 90 seconds teaser, then I'm more likely to watch it or skip to the parts that I want to find out more about.
Everyone's on TikTok nowadays.
Exactly.
So the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is that I know you have kind of 3 separate internet flows, 3 businesses. I know you've also had some recent acquisitions and stuff. How do you deal with that from a kind of onboarding perspective? Are they all like aligned in that platform?
So answer is yes. Ultimately, we make the decision as a business whenever we acquire a new company, they will all use one platform, the same as we do for everyone else. I guess it's finding the right time to make that change because we've all been there when a company's been acquired, whether you've worked for the company that's been acquired or you're from the company that's acquired it. And it's quite scary in those early days, and there is a bit of kind of us and them sometimes. So what we tend to do, and we've just done an acquisition, which is quite a small one over the last few weeks, is look at when is the right time to move them to one platform, because typically before that now we're doing more work around how do we kind of align the cultures together before we suddenly say, here's a platform where you can find everything. So it starts with more of that kind of soft skills around how do we make sure they understand what Holland Barrett or our benefits are, all those kind of things, and then we move on to the platform.
Cool. The big thing as well that I'm sure someone would have asked if I didn't is mobile. I know a lot of organisations run into challenges when it comes to mobile, especially when it comes to frontline workforce and things like that. First of all, do you use mobile, or when you've got employee app, do you use that at all? What are your plans with it?
Okay, I'm going to throw a question out to the audience while you ideas. Is anyone in the room, raise your hand, from an information security team? One person, brilliant. So I'm going to change my answer slightly from that. So mobile experience, and this is very Holland Barrett focused. We had some challenges with rolling out because our info security team wanted to protect our information, wanted to protect our data. So to be honest with you, it's rolled out slightly after when I would want it to, because we've had to make sure two-factor authentication, all those kind of things are right. Something I would say though is, and something that we work quite heavily with our tech team is, we've got to get the experience right for colleagues. If I work a 10-hour shift on a Wednesday and that's all I do for Holland Barrett in my week, it's not likely that I'm going to spend an hour setting up a mobile phone app on my personal device to do that. So we've had to make sure, working with those information security colleagues, that anything we do is seamless, it's quick and it's easy to understand. So I would say, out of our whole experience, that's been the one blocker that we've had along the journey around how do we make sure the security is right, but balance that with how's the experience right. But what we found is, when we rolled out mobile, and this is something that we're now rolling out to every colleague, we get huge engagement. So actually what we see is John on the way to work on the bus, he's just having a quick look on the app. He doesn't have to do it, this is his choice that he's doing that, but he's having a quick look on the app because maybe he saw a video yesterday and he thought, I've got 10 minutes now, I'll watch this, and now on the bus to work. So we see that people kind of fit it into their life when it's most appropriate for them because it's on their personal device versus having to go to the back of the store to use a computer that no one's going to use that way, so you just turn it on and all that.
Cool. And then the final one from me is, let's go with,
well, I mean, you were involved at the very beginning stages. I think we probably had a call very early on in the beginning. So you obviously had different options at the outset. You used SharePoint as well. How did you kind of make the choice of what sort of technology you wanted to use and what was the right partner?
So I'm sorry to mention to break your heart here, Kaz, but we weren't dead set on uni at the beginning, so we had a real open mind. So for us, it was looking at what is the right platform for our colleagues. And as I said, we already have 3 different platforms that we use. So we went through a really quite a detailed tendering process, and your sales team, I'm sure, hated me at the end of that tendering process, to really understand what could every platform offer our colleagues, and how can we make sure that it's giving them the best experience. So we ended with Udemy because it hit our criteria for all those things. What we found with some other sites, and feel free to shout at me if you disagree, but SharePoint, we struggled with some of the customization and with some of the experience, whereas some of the off-the-shelf products, actually, that was just there and ready to go, and we need to customize that a little bit more.
Yeah, just realised here we go.
There you go, there's some
That was your leadership.
of the platform.
And then actually, whilst we get the mic ready, I've got one final one, which is, so you kind of mentioned around, well, in terms of being with the SaaS provider, we have like a feature store, you've got different experiences and stuff. You mentioned some plans to kind of roll out more videos. Are there any other features or experiences or anything like that that you're looking forward to rolling out?
So there's a few that we're looking at the moment. So if you don't already use Udemy, I feel like I'm now doing a sales pitch, but I just love this part of the experience of working with Udemy. I'm not being paid to say anything, there's no hashtag. So one of the things that you have with Udemy is they have a feature store, and every month they roll out new features, and some of those are based on ideation from their customers. And so I mentioned earlier about we rolled out pronouns across our platform. That was because when we went live, that wasn't on there, and I suggested that, and then that was included.
I was the product manager there.
There you go. Let's see. We kind of coordinated our outfits. Today we coordinated rollouts. It's all going to get scary now. Some of the other things that we're really looking forward to doing is the onboarding experience. One of the things that we know we're not very good at a business right now is offering a consistent experience from when you accept that job offer right through to starting to get your first promotion. So we're looking at actually how can we use some of the features. So someone who's just accepted a job offer can get access to the platform straight away, find out about our values, find out about who we stand for as a business in more detail, and then we can continue that journey right on. So before someone's even joined Holland Barrett, they can access our platform to really feel part of the team before we've started. I'd say that's definitely top of the list for us.
Cool, excellent. That's everything from me. You're more than welcome to, later come speak to us at the booth. We're at booth 102 in the exhibitor hall. But I think we have time for one question. We'll go over slightly, but if anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, cool. have one, perfect. Of course.
Really good. Yeah, it's a really good question. So the question was, in case you couldn't hear it, is how did we train our colleagues on using the platform? So something we wanted to do from day one is not have to have, so you have to go through a 10-minute training session to have to use the platform, because what we found from the majority of our workforce is actually they're on Facebook, they're on different elements of social media, whether that, whichever platform that might be. So we tried to make it all as simple as possible. So from the homepage, I can easily find that bit of information because it's just obvious where that is. I'll be honest with you, what I think was obvious and what some of our colleagues thought were obvious, we have different opinions around that, and we're constantly tweaking and changing that. But we didn't roll out kind of official training as such. It was more around drop-in sessions if people wanted to attend them. We had one person from each store was a bit of a super user as such, so they would kind of share the latest information and latest rollouts there. But we didn't find through taking that approach that affected our adoption. What we found there is that it just gave loads of feedback around, well, actually it doesn't make sense that you're putting employee benefits under this section, I would put it there. So it just meant we were having tweaks and changes around where things were on the site, but it didn't feel like it needed kind of a formal learning and development style role now.
Excellent, thank you so much. We'll both be at the Unity booth, but booth 1 and 2 for the next 30 minutes, so if you do want to ask here, feel free to ask either of us there. And thank you so much for this, Marc.
Thank you very much.